All right, let's dive right in. The whole RNA interference therapy world is really heating up.
It really is. Lots of buzz.
And there's this potential for some major collaborations. It's quite electrifying, actually.
Yeah, big pharma partnering with biotech.
Exactly. And the one everyone's watching right now seems to be a possible link-up between, well, the giant Novartis and Arrowhead Pharmaceuticals.
Focused on Arrowhead's drug, Plozasiran.
Right, Plozasiran. And we've got some info suggesting this isn't just, idle chatter. A pretty significant deal could actually be on the horizon.
Well, what's so interesting here is you see all these strategic pieces kind of aligning.
How so?
You've got this drug, Plozasiran, that looks really promising. It's nearing the end of development. Then you have a major player, Novartis, with what seems like a very clear strategic reason to be interested.
And a need in the market, presumably.
And a big unmet need in the market, absolutely. And for you listening, this is more than just company names, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's about potential breakthroughs for treating severe hypertriglyceridemia that's dangerously high fat levels in the blood.
And also that rare condition, FCS.
And familial chylomicronemia syndrome. Yeah, FCS. Really debilitating conditions. Plozasiran offers a totally new way to tackle them.
Using RNA interference.
Exactly. Which is, well, it's a fascinating way to precisely turn down specific genes, stopping harmful proteins from being made in the first place.
Okay, so today's mission for this deep dive, let's unpack this potential partnership. How likely is it really?
And what are the strategic wins for Novartis, for Arrowhead?
Right. We need to look at Plozasiran's clinical journey, where it's at.
And what's Novartis thinking? What's their strategy right now?
And maybe look at some similar deals in the past. See if there's a pattern.
Yeah, precedents can tell us a lot. Should give us a clearer picture of what might actually happen here.
Okay, let's start with the drug itself, Plozasiran.
Right. So this isn't some shot in the dark. It's Arrowhead's lead RNAi candidate for these conditions, SHTG and FCS.
And it's pretty far along.
Oh, yeah. Phase 3 clinical trials. That's the big leagues. Pivotal studies.
The ones needed for approval.
Exactly. They're designed to really confirm safety and how well it works in lots of patients. There's the Palisade trial, specifically for FCS.
Okay.
And then Capitan, which is looking more broadly at cardiovascular outcomes in patients with those high triglycerides.
And the results so far, I hear they've been pretty good.
Quite impressive, yeah. We're seeing significant drops in those really high triglyceride levels.
Which is the main goal.
Plus, there's a positive trend on other cardiovascular risk factors, too. And, crucially, the safety profile looks favorable.
That safety part is always key, isn't it? What stands out most for you in that data?
Well, it's the size of the effect, how much the triglycerides drop, and how consistently they see it. That, combined with the safety we mentioned.
And that's caught the FDA's attention.
Definitely. Strong enough that Plozasiran got both breakthrough therapy and fast-track designations from the FDA.
Okay, so those aren't just labels. They mean something.
They really do. It means the FDA sees major potential here for a serious unmet need. And it helps speed up the whole development and review process. More FDA interaction, faster timelines.
Speaking of timelines, they seem to be moving really quickly now.
They are. Arrowhead submitted the new drug application, the NDA, late last year, 2024.
And the FDA accepted it?
Accepted for review in January this year, 2025. And they've set the PDUFA date. That's the target date for their decision.
When we find out if it's approved or not.
Exactly. That's set for November 18th, 2025.
Wow. So potentially approved before the end of this year.
That's the timeline. It's remarkably fast.
Okay. And that kind of timeline, getting so close to market, must make it way more attractive for a potential partner, right?
Absolutely. It massively increases its value as an asset for a bigger company looking to, add to their pipeline.
Which brings us to Novartis. Now, they have a bit of a history with RNAi, don't they?
They do. It's interesting. They actually sold off some earlier RNAi assets to Arrowhead back in 2015.
Right. So why would they be circling back now? Seems like a change of heart.
Well, that is the key question. They were in, they stepped back a bit, but now, yeah, it looks like a deliberate return, especially in cardiovascular treatments.
What makes you say that? What signs are we seeing?
Well, look at their recent moves, some key acquisitions, licensing deals. It all points pretty clearly to a renewed focus on RNA-based therapies for heart disease.
Okay.
And you have to connect it to their big success story, Leqvio.
Yes. Their RNAi drug for cholesterol.
Exactly, for LDL cholesterol. Leqvio is doing well. It shows they understand this technology in the cardiometabolic space. They've built the infrastructure. They know how to sell these kinds of therapies.
That's a great point. So they've cracked the code on lowering bad cholesterol with RNAi,
Right.
and Plozasiran targets triglycerides. It's a very logical next step, expands their whole lipid management portfolio.
Precisely. It fits perfectly. A highly strategic, complementary addition.
Makes a lot of sense. And do they have the financial firepower for a big deal?
Oh, absolutely. We shouldn't forget that. Novartis is sitting on something like $15 billion in cash reserves.
15 billion. Okay.
Yeah. And they have a track record of being active in business development, making deals. So they can definitely afford a substantial partnership for Plozasiran.
Though I suppose even $15 billion gets spent quickly on big pharma deals.
Well, yeah. And previous deals in this space show they're willing to spend big. Remember, they bought the medicines company for Leqvio. That was almost $10 billion. So $15 billion is a lot. But deals for really promising assets can get very expensive. The valuation, the deal structure, that'll be critical.
Right. So, okay, Plozasiran looks good. Novartis seems interested and has the cash. What would a deal actually look like? It probably wouldn't be simple.
Unlikely. Not for an asset this important. You look at past deals for clues, like the Sarepta-Vertex deal.
For DMD gene therapies.
Yeah. That had $1 billion upfront payment. It shows the kind of money that can be involved in these cutting-edge therapy partnerships.
$1 billion upfront. Wow.
And again, Novartis spending nearly $10 billion for inclisiran for Leqvio shows they're serious about RNAi and cardiovascular disease. They'll pay for the right asset.
Okay, so big numbers potentially involved. How would they slice up the rights? Who sells it where?
A model that looks really likely and, frankly, quite attractive is this kind of US ex-China split.
Okay, break that down. What does Novartis get?
In that scenario, Novartis would probably get the exclusive rights to sell Plozasiran everywhere except the US and China.
Oh, Europe, rest of Asia, other big markets.
Exactly. Lucrative markets where Novartis already has a huge commercial presence, regulatory know-how, relationships with doctors. It leverages their existing machine perfectly.
Makes sense. So Arrowhead keeps
Arrowhead would keep the US rights exclusively,
the biggest market.
often the most profitable market, which is huge for Arrowhead. They could launch it themselves, maybe find a co-commercial partner later. Keeping US rights is strategically very valuable these days for smaller innovators.
Okay. U.S. for Arrowhead, most of the rest of the world for Novartis. What about China? That's a massive market too.
Right. And that's where Arrowhead's subsidiary Vizurna fits in.
Ah, their China-focused arm.
Yeah, Vizurna is already running trials with Plozasiran in China. So it makes perfect strategic sense for Arrowhead, through Vizurna, to keep the China rights. It aligns with what they're already doing there.
So a three-way split. U.S., China, rest of the world. Neat.
It's very neat. Avoids conflicts, lets everyone focus where they're strongest.
Okay, logical structure. What about the money side? What kind of financials might we see with that kind of split?
Well, looking at similar deals and the potential here, you'd probably expect an upfront payment, somewhere in the range of, say, $500 million to maybe $1 billion.
$500 million to $1 billion.
Yeah.
Just to sign the deal.
Yeah, upfront. Then, on top of that, you'd almost certainly see milestone payments.
Tied to hitting certain goals.
Exactly. Regulatory approvals, hitting sales targets. That could potentially add up to another maybe $1.5 billion over time. And finally, royalties. Arrowhead would get a percentage of Novartis' sales outside the U.S., maybe somewhere in the 15 to 25% range.
That's a serious injection of cash for Arrowhead.
Yeah.
And it's non-dilutive, right? They're not selling shares.
Exactly. Crucially important non-dilutive funding. Okay, so let's quickly summarize the benefits. For Novartis,
Seems clear. They deepen their footprint in cardiovascular and metabolic diseases, a key area for them. They get another innovative RNAi drug.
right, leverages their global sales force perfectly for Plozasiran outside the U.S., maximizes its reach.
And it strengthens their hand against competitors, right?
Yeah.
Like Amgen, Lilly, others playing in this space.
Big time. Strengthens their competitive stance significantly.
And for Arrowhead, this sounds like a potential game changer.
Oh, absolutely. That non-dilutive funding we mentioned, that's critical cash to pay for the hugely expensive job of launching a drug in the U.S.
Right, they need that money if they're keeping the U.S. rights.
Precisely. Plus, they benefit from Novartis' muscle and experience in all those other markets, regulatory hurdles, commercial rollout.
And they keep control of China via Vizurna. No conflicts.
Yeah, keeps everything clean and focused.
So, putting it all together, the drug's progress, Novartis' strategy and money, this logical deal structure.
Yeah.
What's the bottom line? How likely is this, say, in the next year or so?
Given how advanced Plozasiran is, the strong data, Novartis's clear strategic interest and financial capacity,
And that neat geographical split.
and that mutually beneficial split, yeah. I'd say a partnership in the next maybe 6 to 12 months looks highly probable. The stars seem quite aligned right now.
Especially with that PDUFA date looming in November.
Exactly. That often acts as a catalyst for these kinds of deals. The pressure is on to get things sorted before potential approval.
Okay, so the key takeaway for you listening. Arrowhead's Plozasiran is looking really promising for high triglycerides, and FCS is getting close to a potential FDA decision this November.
And Novartis looks like a very logical partner. They need something like this. They can afford it. And there's a deal structure, that geographic split, that seems to work really well for both sides.
So watch this space. Developments could happen relatively soon.
Which leads to a final thought, something for you to chew on. If this deal does happen, or maybe other similar RNAi partnerships, how does that shake up the whole market for triglyceride-lowering drugs? What does it mean for doctors, for patients? Will we see more competition, better access?
Interesting question. What are the knock-on effects for actual treatment options down the line?
Exactly. What are the implications? It's definitely a dynamic field, RNAi therapeutics, worth keeping a close eye on.